Imagine a parent, Sarah, staring at a grocery bill, wondering how to make ends meet until the next paycheck. Or David, juggling 2 jobs, hoping to afford new shoes for his growing kids before school starts. These are not isolated stories. Across the nation, millions of families face similar daily struggles, where every dollar counts. In such moments, a small financial buffer, a bit of unexpected relief, can feel like a lifeline. But what if that lifeline was specifically designed to support families with children? This is the core question we are investigating today. Is the child tax credit actually worth it? The Child Tax Credit, or CTC, is a provision in the U.S. tax code designed to help families offset the costs of raising children. It's not a new concept. Various forms of support for families have existed for decades. But the modern CTC, as we understand it, has a specific origin and has undergone dramatic transformations. For many families, it represents a direct financial benefit, reducing their tax burden or, in some cases, providing a refund. To understand its worth, we must first trace its journey, from a modest deduction to a potentially transformative economic tool. The child tax credit was formally introduced in 1997, part of a broader effort to provide tax relief to middle-class families. At its inception, the credit was relatively modest. For each qualifying child, families could receive a credit of $400. This was a non-refundable credit, meaning it could reduce a family's tax liability to zero, but it wouldn't result in a direct payment if their tax bill was already lower than the credit amount. It was a step towards recognizing the financial strain of raising children, but its impact was limited, particularly for the lowest income families. Just 4 years later, in 2001, the CTC saw its first significant expansion. The credit amount per child more than doubled, jumping to $1,000. Crucially, this expansion also introduced the Additional Child Tax Credit, or ACTC, which made the CTC partially refundable for low-income families. This meant that even if a family owed no federal income tax, they could still receive a portion of the credit as a refund. This change marked a pivotal shift, moving the CTC beyond just tax relief to directly support the financial well-being of working poor families. The years following the 2001 expansion saw the CTC largely remain consistent, even through major economic turmoil. The global financial crisis of 2008 to 2009 battered household budgets across America, yet the core structure and value of the child tax credit remained mostly unchanged. While other stimulus measures were deployed, the CTC wasn't significantly altered to address the immediate financial needs of families during that period. This highlights how the credit, at times, can be viewed more as a standard tax provision rather than an agile tool for economic intervention. A major overhaul arrived with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, TCJA, of 2017. This legislation significantly increased the CTC to $2,000 per child, a substantial jump. It also vastly expanded income eligibility, meaning more middle and upper income families could claim the full credit. However, the maximum refundable portion, the ACTC, was capped at $1,400 per child and required families to earn a certain amount of income to qualify. This design meant that some of the lowest income families, those earning too little, could still not receive the full benefit or any benefit at all. The 2017 changes sparked considerable debate. Proponents argued that by increasing the credit and expanding eligibility, the TCJA provided substantial relief to a broader spectrum of families. They pointed to the general economic growth that followed the tax cuts. However, critics, including many anti-poverty advocates, highlighted a significant flaw. The partial refundability still excluded millions of the poorest children from receiving the full benefit. They contended that this structure disproportionately favored wealthier families, doing less to combat child poverty directly. Then came 2021 and the American Rescue Plan, ARP. This temporary expansion of the child tax credit represented the most dramatic transformation in its history. The credit amount soared to $3,600 per child under age 6, and $3,000 per child aged 6 to 17. Critically, it became fully refundable, meaning there was no income floor. Even families with zero income could receive the full benefit. And for the first time, advance monthly payments were introduced, distributing half the estimated credit between July and December 2021. This was a true game changer. The effects of the 2021 ARP changes were swift and profound, particularly on child poverty. Research from Columbia University's Center on Poverty and Social Policy indicated a dramatic reduction. They reported that the expanded CTC reduced child poverty by nearly 40% in 2021, lifting 3.7 million children out of poverty. This represented one of the largest single-year reductions in child poverty in U.S. history. This stark statistic became a central argument for proponents, demonstrating the credit's potential as a powerful anti-poverty tool. Beyond poverty reduction, surveys conducted by the Census Bureau provided insight into how families utilize these funds. The data consistently showed that families predominantly used the money to cover essential needs. Food, housing, utilities, clothing, and educational expenses topped the list. This dispelled some fears that the funds would be misspent, suggesting instead that the credit directly addressed immediate household financial pressures. For many, it wasn't about discretionary spending, but about making sure basic necessities were met. The injection of billions of dollars into households also had a ripple effect on local economies. With families spending on necessities, local businesses saw increased demand, from grocery stores to clothing retailers and utility providers. This acted as a form of economic stimulus, circulating money within communities and supporting local jobs. While difficult to quantify precisely, the economic boost was a significant, if often overlooked, benefit, particularly as the nation grappled with recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic's economic fallout. Despite the clear impacts, the 2021 expansion was not without its critics. A central point of contention revolved around work requirements. Many conservatives argued that a fully refundable CTC without an income floor or work requirement could discourage parents from seeking employment. Their concern was that providing unconditional cash payments might reduce the incentive to work, potentially shrinking the labor force. This ideological divide on welfare and work has long shaped policy debates in the US and became a key argument against permanent expansion. Another significant criticism arose from concerns about inflation. As billions of dollars were distributed, some economists and policymakers suggested that this influx of cash into the economy contributed to the rising inflation seen in 2021 and 2022. The argument was that increased consumer demand, fueled by programs like the expanded CTC, outpaced supply, driving up prices. While the causes of inflation are complex and multifaceted, including supply chain issues and energy prices, the CTC's role became a focal point for those concerned about economic overheating. A final major criticism, particularly from budget hawks, centered on the sheer cost of the expanded CTC. A permanent, fully refundable credit at the 2021 levels would represent a significant ongoing expenditure for the federal government. Concerns were raised about the long-term fiscal impact, the national debt, and whether such a large-scale program was fiscally sustainable. This perspective often contrasts the immediate social benefits with the broader economic implications for government spending and taxation. Proponents of the expanded CTC countered these criticisms with compelling arguments. Regarding work requirements, studies suggested that the immediate impact on parental employment was minimal, with many low-income parents already working or unable due to childcare costs or health issues. On inflation, they argued that the CTC's contribution was minor compared to larger economic forces. And concerning cost, they emphasized the long-term societal benefits of reducing child poverty, such as improved health, educational outcomes, and future economic productivity, arguing these outweigh the upfront expenditures. The debate around the 2021 CTC expansion often comes down to what metrics are prioritized. Is the immediate reduction in child poverty the most crucial indicator of success? Or should the focus be on broader economic impacts like inflation and fiscal sustainability? Different stakeholders weigh these factors differently, leading to varied conclusions about the worth of the credit. This is where an objective analysis becomes crucial, considering multiple perspectives and the evidence presented by various sources. The temporary nature of the 2021 enhancements meant that they expired at the end of the year. In 2022, the child tax credit reverted to its pre-ARP form. The maximum credit per child returned to $2,000, and the maximum refundable portion, ACTC, was set at $1,500. Income eligibility limits also snapped back. This reversion had immediate and stark consequences. Data indicates that child poverty rates quickly rose again, reversing many of the gains made in 2021. This rapid reversal underscored the fragile nature of the progress achieved. For families like Sarah's and David's, the expiration of the expanded CTC meant a sudden reduction in their household income. The monthly payments stopped, and the higher credit amounts disappeared. This financial cliff forced many to cut back on essentials, delay purchases, or even fall behind on bills. Anti-poverty organizations reported an immediate increase in demand for food banks and other social services. The experience highlighted how crucial these funds had become for day-to-day survival for millions. To fully grasp the magnitude of the temporary changes, let's compare the pre-ARP CTC with the 2021 expanded version. Before ARP, the maximum credit was $2,000, with only $1,400 refundable and an income floor. During ARP, it was up to $3,600, fully refundable, and no income floor. This was not merely an incremental adjustment. It was a fundamental redesign that fundamentally changed who benefited and how much. The contrast clearly demonstrates the different policy philosophies at play regarding child poverty and family support. Today, the child tax credit remains a hot topic in Washington. There's a surprising bipartisan interest in expanding the CTC again, but significant disagreements persist. Both sides recognize the credit's importance for families, yet their visions for its structure diverge. This indicates that while the worth of supporting families is generally accepted, the how remains deeply divisive. The political landscape around this issue is complex, constantly shifting as lawmakers try to bridge ideological gaps. One of the primary obstacles to a new expansion is the work requirement. Many Republican lawmakers insist that any enhanced CTC must include a robust work requirement, arguing it encourages self-sufficiency and prevents dependence on government aid. Democratic proposals, conversely, often favor full refundability without such stipulations, citing the administrative burden and the potential to exclude the very poorest families who face significant barriers to employment. This ideological chasm is perhaps the largest hurdle to overcome. The cost of a permanent expansion also continues to be a major point of contention. While the 2021 expansion was temporary, a long-term commitment to higher, fully refundable credits would run into hundreds of billions of dollars over a decade. Fiscal conservatives warn about adding to the national debt and the long-term implications for future generations. Any legislative proposal must navigate these significant budgetary concerns, balancing the desire for family support with fiscal responsibility. Beyond the political and fiscal debates, the core question of the CTC's effectiveness as an anti-poverty tool is still under scrutiny. Is it the most efficient way to support families? Some economists propose alternative solutions, such as universal basic income or direct investments in social services. Others argue that the CTC's direct cash payment offers flexibility and empowers families to make their own best decisions. The ongoing academic and policy debate reflects the complexity of solving systemic poverty. Here's the crucial aha moment. The question, is the child tax credit actually worth it? Doesn't have a single, simple answer. Its worth is profoundly dependent on your viewpoint, your priorities, and the metrics you emphasize. If you prioritize immediate poverty reduction and direct support for struggling families, the 2021 expansion was undeniably worth it, lifting millions of children out of destitution. The evidence from Columbia University and the Census Bureau strongly supports this. If your primary concern is the economic stability of households and local economies, the stimulus effect of the CTC, especially the 2021 version, also demonstrated its worth. By putting money directly into the hands of consumers who spent it on necessities, it supported demand and helped businesses recover, as we saw with the billions injected into local economies. For those focused on a robust consumer base and local commerce, the economic circulation was a clear benefit. However, if your priority lies with fiscal responsibility, controlling national debt, and avoiding potential inflationary pressures, then the cost of a large-scale, fully refundable CTC might lead you to question its worth. Critics argue that while the intent is good, the long-term financial burden and potential for economic overheating are too significant to ignore. For this perspective, the benefits might not justify the immense expenditure. Similarly, if you value strong work incentives and believe government aid should be tied to employment, the fully refundable, no-income floor version of the CTC might seem counterproductive. From this perspective, the worth of the credit is diminished if it's perceived to create disincentives to work, even if studies suggest minimal immediate impact. This philosophical difference about the role of government support is central to the debate. Consider the long-term worth. Proponents argue that reducing child poverty today through programs like the CTC has profound benefits for future generations. Children lifted out of poverty tend to have better health outcomes, achieve higher educational attainment, and are more likely to become productive members of the workforce. From this viewpoint, the investment in the CTC is not just an expense, but an investment in the nation's human capital and long-term prosperity. It's about breaking cycles of intergenerational poverty. It's also important to acknowledge that sources sometimes present conflicting interpretations of the data. While Columbia University data showed a significant poverty reduction, some critics might point to other factors or different methodologies to downplay the CTC's singular impact. An investigative approach requires recognizing these areas of disagreement, rather than presenting a single, unchallenged narrative. The complexity of economic and social policy means that definitive, universally accepted conclusions are rare. Ultimately, the child tax credit, in any of its forms, is a tool. It's not a panacea for all economic woes, nor is it inherently good or bad. Its worth is defined by how it's designed, who it reaches, and what societal goals it aims to achieve. The 2021 expansion demonstrated its immense potential to combat child poverty directly and immediately. The subsequent reversion showed the fragility of those gains and the ongoing political struggle over its future. It highlighted that policy choices have real, tangible effects on millions of lives. As lawmakers continue to debate, the future of the child tax credit remains uncertain. Will there be another bipartisan compromise that expands the credit while addressing concerns about work requirements and fiscal cost? Or will it remain largely in its current form, providing significant but limited relief? The answer will depend on political will, economic conditions, and the ability of various stakeholders to find common ground on what constitutes worth in supporting America's families. From a modest $400 non-refundable credit in 1997 to a fully refundable, potentially $3,600 lifeline in 2021, the child tax credit tells a story of evolving priorities and ongoing debate. It's a testament to the nation's struggle to balance fiscal prudence with social welfare, economic growth with equity. Every tweak, every expansion, and every reversion has had a direct impact on families like Sarah's and David's, shaping their ability to provide for their children and their hope for a more secure future. Ultimately, behind all the numbers, the legislation, and the economic theories, there are real families and real children. The worth of the child tax credit, for many, is measured in the ability to put food on the table, keep a roof overhead, and give their children a better start in life. It's the tangible difference it makes in preventing a child from growing up in poverty, offering them opportunities they might otherwise never have. This human element is what often drives the most passionate advocacy for its expansion. So, is the child tax credit actually worth it? The answer, as we've seen, is a complex calculation, steeped in economic data, policy debates, and deeply held values. It's worth it to the millions of children lifted out of poverty, and to the local economies it stimulated. But it carries significant fiscal costs and raises questions about work incentives for others. The story of the CTC is not just about a tax policy, it's about the ongoing societal conversation of how best to support our families and invest in our future. We've laid out the facts. The conclusion is now yours to weigh.